Many times I get up after one of their songs and I think, we really don't need to have another topic to talk about than what the lyrics in these songs and these simple lyrics say. And that is, what if we are reminded all the time that no matter what road you're on, no matter what the specific way in which you reach God, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know, wars have been fought and lives have been lost and hundreds of thousands and millions because we are so attached to a certain way. But in here at Spiritual Soul Center, we say, you know, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we are moving toward a greater understanding of God as we understand it to be. And if we're moving in that direction, we are moving with kindness and love. And we know that there's power in that. We know that there's power in that. I might just one day not prepare a message at all. And I would take some bravery, I can tell you, a little bit of courage to not have anything prepared. Just let whatever songs that Kay and Michael and Justin here to share with us be the inspiration for that. What do you think? Should I do it? There you go.
Yeah.
Oh! Yeah, it's easy for you to say. But I really try in my life, and Renee can attest to this. She can attest to the times I am successful and to attest to the times that I fail, to really walk this talk. You know, to really use these ideas in my life, in your life, to make a difference. Right? I mean, if we're not doing that, then we might just stay home and watch TV. But here we are trying to understand how we can live more spiritually in this world as in these human forms. I call them our earth suits. We have this earth suit on, but we are not this. We are so much more than this. We simply are in this incarnation. So anyway, we are in the third week of a series called The Soul of Money, based on this book by Lynn Twist. And I've asked you to suspend your ideas of what you believe about money. Because usually we have this visceral reaction when somebody wants to talk about money. We have the chuckle, or the stomach goes like this, or our ears just close down, especially when it comes from a minister type person. We don't want to hear anything about money. But I said, just suspend all that. And we used one of our old Buddha affirmations that says, leave everything as it is and rest your weary mind about money. Just leave everything leave it at the door for right now. And in the first week, I shared with you some of the myths or lies about money. And here they are. Those of you who are here get a little refresher. Those of you who that weren't here will get this little idea. Number one, it's a lie that there isn't enough. It's not true. It's a lie that more is better. It's not true at all. And it's a lie that that's just the way it is. Those ideas are not true, but we perpetuated that because we believe it. We created those ideas in ourselves, we believe it, and that's the way we live. But we learned last week that there is enough. And I mentioned to you that this idea of scarcity is a mindset, and this idea of enough is a mindset. And it's up to us to choose. We can create either mindset. We created the first one of scarcity, some of us from childhood, right? And we can create the mindset of enough. And enough comes from within. It's not something we gather from the outside. When we are in the place of enough, it's the birthplace of possibility. Because it clears out the obstacles, and our wealth is in ideas. Last week I read the book, What is an Idea? Or what do you do with an idea? Because ideas are our wealth. Where does an idea come from? It doesn't come from your brain. It comes from the universal pulse, this creative energy that's in the universe. And wealth is in the ideas. So this week, I want to remind us that what we're really about, if we are looking to the soul of money, is to suspend our ideas of scarcity and to adopt the ideas of enough. And when we do that, we make room for us to listen to our soul. We clear out enough that we're able to hear to the depth of our soul, to be the guidance to come from within rather than what's in the physical world. I want to read this to you. Each of us experiences a lifelong tug of war between our money interest and the calling of our soul. Now maybe some are very extreme and maybe some are not so extreme, but let me say that again. We experience this tug of war between our money interests and the calling of our soul. When we're in the domain of the soul, we act with integrity. We are thoughtful and generous, allowing and courageous and committed. We recognize the value of love and friendship when we're coming from the soul. We admire a small thing well done. We experience moments of awe in the presence of nature and its unrefined beauty. We are open, vulnerable, and heartful. We have the capacity to be moved and generous by nature. We are trustworthy and trusting of others, and our self-expression flourishes. We feel peace in ourselves and confidence that we're part of something bigger. But when we enter the domain of money, there often seems to be a disconnect from that soulful place. We get scared, we act selfishly, we get smaller, we're greedy, and the possibilities dry up. So the question is, how do we get and remain in the domain of the soul as it relates to money? How do we come from that place of generosity? How do we get in the mindset of enough and operate from these soul attributes that I just read? Those places of generosity. How do we get there from the domain of the soul to the domain of the soul as it relates to the money in our lives? Because those two don't always seem to mix. She's saying they seem like oil and water, that they don't even mix. But I think we need to find a way to operate from there. Because here's the truth, and you have it on your card. Our money carries the belief and the thinking that we have in our soul. The money doesn't have a soul. We bring our soul to money. You see that difference? We bring to bear on our interaction and our use of money our own soul. Because money itself, you remember in the first time I talked about this, it has no value at all. That piece of paper in your wallet, whether it be a check or a $1 bill, has value because we put that value in it. Well, here's an idea for you. Here's a belief about money that may help you come at it from the level of your soul. How about this? Money is like water. Money is like water because it flows through my life. I mean, money flows through our lives. Money's like water, and it carries with it whatever energy that we decide to place in it. That's true. Just like a river. And sometimes that money comes through our lives in a trickle. Sometimes it comes through in a nice bubbling brook. Sometimes maybe in this mighty river of money just flowing through our lives. And it carries just like a river or a stream or a trickle carries. It can carry the sweetness of a mountain air down a hill. It can carry mud and silt from a rainstorm. If you're in Wilmington, North Carolina, the Cape Fear River can carry Gen X. It can carry high levels of fluoride. You know, that river carries whatever we decide we put in it, just like we do with our money. You see, that's the way it works, just like a river. Well, I want to share you this story. And if we bring, let me say this, if we bring this mindset of enough to our money, that flow is very easy. We allow it to flow. We intentionally put energy in it that's positive. And it's a good experience. When we don't try to dam it up, put it all for us. When we do that, we end up with Gen X. You know, we end up with those negative things about money. We get fearful, and that's what we plant in our money. But what if money's like water? Here's a story from Lynn Twist's book. She's a fundraiser, by the way, and so she went into the CEO's office to get a check that he had already decided he was willing to give for her Hunger Project, is the nonprofit she runs. And she went in that office, and he already had the $50,000 check made out to her. He really didn't want to hear anything she had to say about the Hunger Project. He slid it across the desk and expected her to take it and get up and leave. And she did. But she didn't feel good about it, because the energy that came across in that $50,000 check didn't make her feel good. It wasn't good. It wasn't a good energy. What he was planting was not what she wanted to receive. But she took the check because she's like, well, that's my job. I'm here to fundraise for this Hunger Project. Well, that same day, later on, she had a church meeting in the basement in Harlem. And she was meeting with about 15 folks there. And she presented her ideas about the Hunger Project, all of the things that were possible with it, to these 15 people. It was raining crazy out that day. Drips were coming through the basement into that space. And she made her presentation. And after what seemed like a long pause, a woman stood up. She was sitting on the aisle in a row near the back. And she was in her late 60s or early 70s. She had gray hair parted down the middle, swept up into a tidy bun. And when she stood up, she was tall, slender, erect, and proud. "Girl," she said, "my name is Gertrude, and I like what you said, and I like you. Now, I ain't got no checkbook, and I ain't got no credit cards. To me, money is a lot like water. For some folks, it rushes through their life like a raging river. Money comes through my life like a little trickle. But I want to pass it on in a way that does the most good for the most folks. And I see that as my right and as my responsibility. It is also my joy. I have $50 in my purse that I earned from doing a white woman's wash, and I want to give it to you." Well, she walked up the aisle, and she put her $50 in, and pretty soon, the other 15 or 20 people were bringing their cash up to put in her little bag, to her open bag that she had there. She said there was a sense of integrity about that giving. Gertrude's $50, she said, felt a whole lot more valuable than that $50,000 check she had just received earlier that day. She said, "The money I received from Gertrude carried the energy of her commitment to make a difference, the stamp of her soul." That's what I think it's about. See, this is what, when I think about money, I want to emulate. I want it to have the stamp of my soul. I want it to be empowered by integrity and generosity and my conscious commitment to make a difference. Yeah. Last week I asked you all to make an offering during Sweet Talk for a discretionary fund, so that I had some money. If somebody came to me and needed some help in a certain way, that I would have some cash on hand to help that person through a rough time, maybe to pay a bill, maybe to put gas in their car. And you came through. $160 we collected last week for our discretionary fund. I hope you infused it with the stamp of your soul that knows that that money is more than just what's written on that paper, that it will go toward making a huge difference beyond its value. To put the stamp of our soul on our money. But here's the thing, it's not just about putting our stamp of our soul on the money that we give. It's about putting the stamp of our soul on the money we spend. Like every time you pay the power bill, or your mortgage or rent, or you buy groceries, put gas in your car, how about putting the stamp of your soul on that? With integrity, with that this is a possibility in your life, that this energy comes to you, God knows how, it comes to these lights. To turn on a switch and have that, to turn on the water and have it, well, mostly drinkable in Wilmington. To put the stamp of your soul on that. How about to put the stamp of your soul on the money about where you spend your money? Do you spend it on businesses that you feel support the values that you hold? Do you make your investments in places that are important to you? You know, Renee and I have a broker, and we said, listen, we want socially conscious investments. We know that big oil is making a lot of money. We know that guns and ammo are making a lot of money in the stock market. But we're not going there. We don't want to put our money there. We want to feel good about where we are investing. We want to put the stamp of our soul on that investment. You have the power to do that. You have the power to support businesses that you feel are in line with your values. But we have to be conscious of it. We just can't go around throwing, spending money wherever. We have to be conscious. We say, yeah, this is where I want to be. This is how I want to support it. And I don't care if you're going into the dollar store or on Amazon or giving to Spiritual Soul Center. It doesn't matter to put that stamp of your soul on your money. Here's the other thing. We should also be thinking about the stamp of our soul on the money we receive. How do you feel when you get your paycheck? How do you feel when you get your Social Security check? How do you feel when you get an inheritance? Are you putting the stamp of lack on there? Or are you putting the stamp of possibility on that money as it comes through? Do you feel like, oh, well, I deserve this. This is my entitlement. I'm owed this. Or do you put the stamp of your soul on it? There's a difference. There's a difference. We don't write many checks these days, but I have a practice that I use when I write a check. And in the notation area, I write GIMS. And I used to think, well, back when we wrote checks to the power company and we didn't pay them online, I used to think, they must think I'm putting voodoo on the check, GMIS. Wonder what that means. God is my source, is what it means to me. I want to acknowledge all the time that money is flowing through my life. And there's only one source for my money, and that's God. That's the pulse in the universe that has allowed me to be successful in the way I am, to be able to put that money through my life. The first thing that Renee and I do in our checkbook, once we get a paycheck, it goes in there, and the next line is tithe. That's the first thing I want to think about is how can I use my money in support of the universe? So these are all ways of putting the stamp of your soul on the money as it circulates through your life, some ideas. You get that? I think that's what Gertrude was doing. I think that's what she was doing. See, we need to direct some power and attention toward our money and not just use it willy-nilly. I encourage you maybe to look in your wallet. How do you have it stuffed in there? Do you have it all cattywampus and stuck everywhere? Or do you treat it the way you want to be treated? With some organization and some sensitivity, some appreciation. How about that? For the fact that you have it at all. That's what I'm talking about. Well, we do have that choice, and that money that I'm talking about really is an extension of who we are and how we are. Listen to this. When we allow jealousy, envy, resentment, and even vengeance to become the focus of our attention and intention, we become jealous, envious, resentful, vengeful people with our money. When we direct our attention to creativity, courage, integrity, we become expressions of those qualities in whatever we do in our interactions with our money. That's the stamp of our soul. You either are putting in healthy fish and clear water, smelling like mountain air, or something else. Chemicals and pollution. It's up to us. That's how it works. So here's a simple way to think about it. Here's another idea of how we can bring ourselves in this idea of enough. And you know this, and you've heard it before, but I want you to think about it as it relates to money. What you appreciate appreciates. Whatever you appreciate grows. And if you appreciate the flow of money through your life, it will grow. It happens. That's an outer resource. But you know what? We can also appreciate our inner resources. Some of you say, well, I'm just in a down time. The money's not coming in. It really is a trickle, and I'm struggling. Well, I encourage you in that regard is start to appreciate your inner qualities. Start to appreciate what you already have. You say, well, what do I have that's a quality that I can appreciate? Well, think about, what do people tell you you're the best at? What do people already appreciate you for? They tell you, God, you do that so well. You're so creative. I can't believe how you take care of children. It's amazing how you can write. this way. You know, the way you take care of plants and animals or whatever it is, they're telling you. People tell you all the time, but we brush it off. I'm saying, listen. Listen to what other people tell you, what you do well, and start appreciating that in yourself. Because what you appreciate, appreciates. And those inner resources and the outer resources together, appreciating those together, will allow them to grow. Well, I want to share this story about appreciation because it's an amazing story that I had in my amazing story file. Actually, it's called Inspirational Story Folder. And I was looking for a good story for today because we learn so well by stories. Well, and it's about appreciating what always isn't apparent. This young boy, John, 7 years old, was severely autistic. He had the kind of autism where he wasn't able to communicate at all. He couldn't speak, he couldn't communicate his feelings. And his parents and his therapists up to that point in time were just so discouraged. They were at their wits' end of knowing how to deal with him. He would hurt himself, he would bite his arms, he would hit his head, and people were afraid. Well, he got hooked up with this guy named Jeff. Let me make sure that's his name. Yes, Jeff. And Jeff worked with John as a one-on-one therapist. He started working with him when he was 7 years old. And he recognized something not too long into his time with John. That when he was active, when he was putting energy out, he could notice a smile in John's face. And he thought, you know, this kid must love activity like that. And Jeff had been involved in the Special Olympics. So he decided that he was going to introduce John to Special Olympics. Now listen to this. For 3 years, he took him to the track. For 3 years, he showed him how to stand, how the events operated. He showed him and made him aware of how races worked. For 3 years, Jeff saw in John something no one else could see. And he committed himself for that amount of time before he even signed John up for his first race. After 3 years, he did exactly that, and he kept those races short so that he could be confident that John would finish the race. And that's what he did at 12 years old, finishing a 50-yard or 50-meter race. But Jeff wasn't satisfied with that. He saw in John what no one else had ever seen, this possibility. And at age 18, so that's 6 years later, Jeff took him to the Special Olympics, the big nationwide Special Olympics, where John won a gold medal in the 800-meter run. Now, I want to say that this guy, Jeff, is a hero. He saw something beyond what was apparent in the physical. He appreciated in John something that no one else could see. And I got to think that his life is fulfilled in many ways from putting that soul stamp on whatever it is that he's involved with. You see, I think once we come to this understanding that we can bring our soul to bear on the circulation of money through our lives, the circulation of energy through our lives, that we decide it's not all about getting, it's not all about accumulating, it's about allocating. It's about allocating. It's deciding to put the energy out there. It's about not gathering it toward myself, but to put my stamp of my soul on everything in my sight. To see beyond what seems apparent to a deeper level. To put it where it can do the most good. Who could argue that that intention and attention that Jeff gave to this young boy with autism was not for the greatest good of that young boy's life and for Jeff's as well. Let me read this in closing about money. No matter how much or how little money you have flowing through your life, when you direct that flow with soulful purpose, you feel wealthy. You feel vibrant and alive when you use your money and your soul stamp, I would say, in a way that represents you, not just a response to the market economy or the autistic boy in front of you, but also as an expression of who you are. When you let your money move things that you care about, your life lights up. And that really, my friends, is what money is for. So let's take a breath and breathe all of that in. Or maybe just one thing. As we prepare for meditation, to settle in. There's one thing maybe you heard that is worth spending some time with. So I invite you to, again, to breathe in and breathe out. And settle into that soul place. Feel what it feels like to put the stamp of your soul into the world. To let it flow. To let it carry the intention that you desire, that you decide. Let it be that. Let's sit for a while with that. I want to be inspired to new heights. I want my spirit to soar into a new awakening. I want to feel alive and full of wonder, birthing new ideas and dreams. I want to be captured by adventures beyond the realm of my imagination. I pray to become one with the pulse of the universe, rejoicing at the arrival of dawn in my heart. Beloved, may I find this inspiration within me, around me, in all I touch and all I see. May it brighten my life as I walk, step by step, into its embrace.